Hello, hello, hello. We are back with another episode of the Jane Warren podcast. Now, listen, I know that I always say I have exciting guests, but I am so excited. Today, we have Hina Khan. Hina Khan was my first ever coach and mentor. She is the reason that I am doing what I am doing today. She completely transformed my life. This episode is going to be absolutely incredible. And we are going to talk specifically about how to build a life and business that you love. And I just love this topic. Hina, thank you so much for being here. I'm
Thank
so
you. Oh my gosh, Jane. I'm so excited to be on your podcast. Thank you so much for having me.
This is such a blessing. So before we dive into this, let me just give some information on Hina because honestly, you are such an inspiration to me. You're such an inspiration to so many others. So listeners, if this is your first time listening to the Jane Warren podcast, thank you for joining. For all the repeat listeners, you're going to love this. So Hina Khan is I'm saying the go-to peak performance coach for CEOs, specifically focusing on mindset. She works with executives, entrepreneurs. She has over 2 decades of experience working with hundreds of people globally. I've been one of those people. I've witnessed all the people around the world joining the calls. So Hina really focuses on where peak performance meets spirituality. And this was amazing for me as well. This really transformed everything. And as a former psychotherapist, Hina is known to transform lives. So her clients create really the lives that they love that are rich in all areas. And this is done through ease, joy, and fun, which I love. And through her curated Amplify You framework, her clients made their annual income their monthly income. They have deepened their relationships. They have moved into their dream homes. They've worked for companies that they love, started businesses, and so much more. So she is really a sought after expert. You'll see her. She's based out of Toronto here. You'll see her on national TV shows, in magazines, keynotes, podcasts. She has her own podcast. We'll have all the links in the description. And her podcast is Possibilities with Hina Khan. So let me just say, Hina does not just have a business, she has a mission. And I am beyond blessed and grateful that you're here spending this time with us today. So, Hina, let's dive into this. This is going to be a jam-packed episode. So, when it comes to building a life and a business for us entrepreneurs, that you love or in your career, would you say that you always had a life and business first that you enjoyed? Let's dive a little bit into that.
I would say that I always knew what my purpose was, and it was to help people and create transformation. And then the vehicle was different. And that's what I want people to know is that you're going to have many iterations. You've had that, Jane, where the focus is a little bit different, but the actual essence is the same. So whether it was on TV or whether it was in my psychotherapy practice or whether it was coaching, and then whether it was coaching at a retreat or it's coaching in a group in the morning calls, or one-on-one coaching, the through line is transformation. The through line is to help people remember who they are. The through line is to help people see what maybe their blind spots are right now that they're not seeing, any blocks that they're having, and help them move past those so that they can truly create a life they love and do it through ease, joy, and fun. So there were different iterations. And I would say that when it felt hard was when I had outgrown an iteration, but I wasn't ready to leave it because I had fear. So those are moments that it felt hard.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. And you definitely, when I started working with you, I still had my virtual fitness business and I was, I knew I was meant for more, but I didn't know what. And I started to see areas that I was making so hard and it felt so hard and I was resisting so much. So through your coaching and guidance, I know working through some of that resistance and those limiting beliefs really helped in order for me to start to get clarity. Really, you have to gain that clarity on what you really want when it comes to building a life that you're going to love.
That's exactly it. So we've got the desire, and then we ideally would have no resistance to having the desire and to receiving the desire. Normally, or what I see often, and I went through this, is that I have the desire and I have resistance to having the desire, to experiencing the desire. So that's where it feels like we're spinning our wheels or we're stuck. So what we have to do, there's nothing wrong with the resistance coming up. It's actually a good thing because those resistances, those limiting beliefs could not exist from the place of your goal. So they've got to come up. The problem is when we don't deal with it or we think that, oh, that is actually telling me I should not be doing it. And that's not the case at all. It's saying to you, let's heal this part or let's move through this, whatever it looks like, and then you can have what it is that you desire. So dealing with the resistance is a big part of what we do.
And so would you say that the resistance and these limiting beliefs and judgments that, your clients and our listeners are holding, would you say that's one of the biggest things that gets in the way of someone feeling like they can actually have the business, have the life that they love?
Yeah, I would say it is the thing that gets in the way because possibility, abundance is all there is. Potentiality, limitations are created, lack is created. And sometimes we create it as a way to actually keep ourselves small or to not do the thing because we might feel nervous about it. It's also a match to our self-image. So, the work that I do, Jane, so much of it is on self-image because when we are thinking about our goals, we can go after it. Like I could use the exact strategy and actually even hire the exact people that somebody that I want to be like and emulate has used. Exact strategy, hire the same people, and it could fall flat. And it's because I don't have the consciousness back of it or the self-image, and we can't outperform our self-image, which is why, and in that self-image are our beliefs and our habits.
Oh, I love that. You can't outperform your self-image. And I know when I first started working with you, I remember that first 6 a.m. call that actually I just had Alicia on the podcast that Alicia had invited me to. And that week you were speaking on self-image. And I was thinking, what is this woman saying? Like, what, you can't outperform your self-image? Can we dive into that one a little bit deeper? Because for someone hearing that, I mean, I've been listening to this and listening to you for years, but for someone hearing that for the first time, because you're right, self-image plays such a key part in being able to create a life that you love, because you need to be the person living the life. So if you don't believe you can be that, then you're going to spin and spin and spin. So let's talk a little bit about that.
So when I talk about self-image, it's not the image that we see reflected in the mirror, it's how we truly feel about ourselves. And one thing I often say is that we don't get what we want, we get how we feel about what we want. So you could want a bigger business, you could want to have more revenue, you could want to be in a relationship. But if you have feelings that are contradictory to that, and those feelings are more dominant, that is what you're going to see expressed in your world. And that is your self-image, how you feel about what you want. So we can think about things like somebody may want to have more revenue, but they don't feel worthy of it, or they have guilt and shame around it, around having money. Somebody could be wanting to be in a different relationship, perhaps a healthier relationship, but again, they don't feel worthy of it. So we're going to attract who we are. We're going to attract what we believe we are worth and what we believe we deserve and what we expect. So expectation is a big part of it. So we can want something, but we're expecting something different that is connected to how we feel, which is a contradictory thought to what we want. And then that's what we will get. And then we say, this stuff doesn't work. It actually works perfectly. You're manifesting what your dominant thoughts are. And so when it comes to our self-image, if we are creating a goal, but we don't do the self-image work, it's either we can have it, but it won't last. We actually won't be able to receive and have it in a sustainable way because we haven't built the foundation and we don't have the inner makeup to be somebody that can hold and have that and then build on that success and build on that success. The way that we can see where is our self-image is look at your results and patterns. I love looking at patterns. Patterns could be like your finances, where they always kind of end up landing. So that's telling you what your self-image is, what your relationship is to money, and what that set point is. It could be in relationships. If you're someone that's dating and it's always great. And then maybe around the 3-month mark or the 6-month mark, you kind of notice something shift. So these are things that you can look at to see where is your self-image, what is the set point that you have in these different areas of your life.
No, absolutely. And that internal thermostat is such an interesting thing. And, take some self-reflection. You need to look at yourself, take a step back, look at what you're doing, look at exactly the results that you're getting and the results that you're not getting that you want, and really get real with yourself on why that's happening. Because, I observe it in myself, and I think it's really easy to see in other people as well, when it comes to holding money or receiving money. And, if you receive money and then spend it all right away because you're used to you're actually, as much as you don't like not having money, you get so comfortable not having money and having, a very low balance or a negative balance in your bank account. And without actually doing some of the work to be able to work on your self-image, to feel worthy and deserving, and to be someone that can hold that and that can continue to grow their account, then you're just going to keep living the same cycle.
That's it. That's it exactly. It's like you have to have the consciousness back of it. And this is what we see even in businesses when there's been a succession, when the business owner, let's say, passes away and then it is inherited. Sometimes it doesn't last the full year even because that person doesn't have the consciousness that the CEO and founder had for the business. And so the good thing about this is that this can help you to understand why perhaps you've had difficulty. And it all starts with telling yourself the truth, like you said, but we want to do it in a way that we have grace for ourselves, not to judge ourselves. We didn't know. And that's why all of our results come from our level of awareness. We weren't aware that our self-image played a role. So, of course, we were getting those results because we weren't aware of it. And it's so true what you said about, and this is going to be shocking for your listeners. They're going to be like, no, Jane, I don't believe you that you're saying that I'm comfortable with a negative bank balance.
Right?
You do not know what you're talking about. I'm like unsubscribing immediately. Don't do that. Keep subscribe, hit all
Keep
the
listening.
things, keep listening because this is so important. It, yes, intellectually, we may think again, this is not what I want, but we get what we feel, how we feel about what we want. And actually, having money, having a surplus, being in abundance and overflow can feel so uncomfortable. It could be so uncomfortable that you are like, it could be so uncomfortable that we move into sabotaging behaviors to get us to that set point again. Even though it is not what we like intellectually, it's what we know and it's where we're comfortable and it's a match to us. You mentioned Alicia being on the podcast. I remember being on her podcast and saying to her, well, let's say I handed you, I can't remember if it was like $10,000 or $50,000 because that's what she desired. I said, so I'm giving it to you now. And she literally went back in her chair and put her hands up. And that after that, she became a private client because she was like, I need some help because it shocked her how quickly she unconsciously went to refusing it. It's like, I don't need it. But all this time, she thought, no, of course I would welcome that. So so again, we do this and we understand this from a place of grace for ourselves because we just weren't aware. We just weren't aware. How would we know if we didn't know?
And that's a really good point because, of course, we all have these judgments, and we can look back and think, when we become aware, we can look back and think, why did I do that? Why did I think that way? But again, we have to meet ourselves where we were at then and know that, yeah, we have more knowledge now, more awareness now. So it's completely fine. And we have to just, maybe release that and work through those judgments with kindness and understanding so that, we don't hold any resentment towards ourselves. I love that example you gave from Alicia. I remember when you shared that with us on the group call. And I also love a great thing that you had, activity you had us do, which was, if you gave us a blank check, like, this is a great way to kind of see where our resistance lies. If you're listening and you want more money in your life and we handed you a blank check, what would you write on it? And what was so amazing is Hannah did this on a group call with us. And so I was like, oh, okay, blank check. What do I want? Like maybe I was like 100,000 or something. And
Yeah.
then it's like people writing like 10 billion. Like, and then I realized when other people are writing things, I thought, okay, interesting. Like I was given a blank check. I could choose any number that I want. And that showed me a lot of where my mindset was around what I felt worthy and deserving and what I could receive, even if, I'd be able to receive that. But I remember like if you would think it should be easy to answer and you just write something down, right? The biggest number you can think about. I wouldn't even think to write $1 billion. I'd probably stop at 1 million at the most or even 500,000, I'd be like, okay, that sounds great. But I found that a really amazing activity.
And also it shows like what is my threshold that I
Mm-hmm.
can receive for, again, air quotes here, doing nothing. Right? It's like, what could I just write a blank check and I'm available to receive? And so, whenever we do the work, when people identify what it is that their desire is and their goal, the next thing is let's enlarge our capacity to receive it. That's a huge part of it. And so, enlarging our capacity to receive it, people are like, well, what does that look like? It looks like in the basic, smallest things. It looks like accepting a compliment and not dismissing it. It looks like when somebody gives you a gift, literally receiving the gift and not making excuses. If you don't have a gift for that person, it's allowing yourself to receive for no reason. And that's one of the things that we talk about is creating a life you love through ease, joy, and fun. So sometimes we feel that we can receive, like I could receive, 1 million or 10 million or 1 billion, but I would have had to really prove that I was worth that. So I would probably be really burnt out, like 1 foot in the grave, because then I
Mm-hmm.
could justify how I can receive that much. But what would it be like to get to a point that your self image is such a match to that
Mm-hmm.
without you doing anything? Now, the ironic thing is that you are going to do things because
Yeah.
you just are. That's the way that it works. But what I mean is that without feeling like I have to prove myself or it's got to be hard. And this is one of the mindset shifts that can be challenging for people at first because we have a lot of A type personalities that come into my program. So rest,
Egos.
a lot of egos, a lot of comparison, a lot of like outside standards of what success looks like. And for
Mm-hmm.
that person, rest can be stressful.
Mm-hmm.
To say you can just receive. And so we're even in our work together, Jane, we talk about incorporating rest. Like rest is actually a strategy, but there can be, again, so much resistance to it. So much resistance to it.
Everything you just said in those last few minutes was exactly what things I was going to ask you. So I'm like, is she looking at my laptop right now? No, I would 1000% agree with what you said. And I feel so grateful that I met you at the point of my business before I went down further, and it took, I remember through working in your group program, I mean, I was a good 6 months before I started to realize my mind was shifting. And I remember the comparison, of course, because naturally, starting my business, I had a very competitive mindset. I was seeing what everyone else was doing and it was bringing me down, thinking I wasn't successful. I had to do major reframes around my success. I had to redefine what success meant in non-monetary ways. There's so many ways you can succeed. And on top of all of that, stop forcing everything because you're seeing what everyone else is doing. I was putting unnecessary pressure on myself and I was feeling, as an entrepreneur, the hustle and grind mentality of having to work hard. People think having a business has to be hard. Thank God I met you because you changed all of that. And really it took months for it to really start to sink in when I started to see the power of rest, when I started to see, okay, we can all rise together. And it's funny because when I talk to my clients or just talk with some of my followers, and they have a competitive mindset, I always say to them, I'm like, you do understand there's more people in the world than you could actually serve. So share the wealth, share it with everyone because there's trillions of people in this world and you're one person. So I'm pretty sure. And I also think if 200 people came right now and said they want your services, could you serve them? Probably not. Like you would not be ready for that. So we get in our heads so much on, well, I want more, I need more. And then all of this just leads to us being unhappy in what
It
we're
does,
doing.
because you're chasing happiness. And one of the things people will say to me is that I want to be happy. And I'm like, that is great. That is not a goal. That is a state. Be happy now. Please do not wait for
Mm-hmm.
anything to change outside of you to now decide that you are worthy of being happy. That we just want that to be your state always. Like that is who you are. That's who you are being. And then you can look at things that light you up for sure and do more of those things and follow your excitement as Bashar says, but happiness is a state that we want to have now, because you're right that then you're always chasing happiness and you're creating a belief system or a paradigm, back to what you had said, Jane, about the set points of always wanting and never having. So
Mm-hmm.
and this can be tricky because I have big desires that keep growing and growing and growing, and I live in gratitude. So sometimes people have a belief that if they want more, it's somehow bad or wrong because it means that they are not happy with what they have. But when happiness is your state and gratitude is your state, that is with what you have. And that is in desiring more, because you know that when you have more of what you want, others have more of what they want, because actually you're giving them unconscious permission to strive and have more and desire more as well. So we want to make happiness not a goal, a state that we always have, and that is being expressed through a variety of ways, but we're always feeling that way. It's part of our self-image. So that would be something to incorporate into your self-image, and not a when then. One thing that we talk about is so many people are like, well, when I get this, then I will be happy, or then I will do that. And we're always putting off our good. And that's why it feels exhausting. And that's why at the end of the night, we weren't doing any manual labor per se, some of us, many of us, but we're exhausted and we can't sleep. We
Mm-hmm.
wake up and we're tired. It's this mental exhaustion, this mental fatigue of this chasing as opposed to having.
I love that. Happiness, 1,000% agree. It is a state. And I think that people make it a goal, just like a lot of entrepreneurs want freedom. They want this freedom-filled life. I even caught myself a few months ago saying, because I picked up some contract work and it's ending at the end of this month, which I'm so excited about because I'll be back to be 100% into my business, flying like a bird. But I caught myself saying, 2 more months until freedom. Those words came when the
Ooh,
second they came out of my mouth, I was like, what did I just say? I was like, why am I delaying my freedom now? And this is a big thing in creating a life and business that you love. You can create a life you love right now. You can start building the business or adjusting and modifying your current business to be more of what you love. And sometimes we go in deep. You could be years into a business, right? And you're not quite ready to flip it upside down. So I think like focusing in on your self-image, focusing in on what you can control, almost a low-hanging fruit. How can you start to do things right now that make you happy every single day? That is going to inevitably make you feel happier and change that state.
and you're in doing that. What's so important with what you're saying, Jane, is you're creating the foundation. We kind of talk about it as the unsexy stuff in a renovation. It's like the stuff behind the walls, it's the
Mm-hmm.
plumbing, it's the electrical, but those things are so necessary for a strong foundation. And
Mm-hmm.
so, even for you in these next 2 months to feel freedom and to look at actually how this contract is giving you freedom, how
Mm-hmm.
it has given you access to more freedom, and good for you for catching it. I mean, that's the thing. It's not that we don't ever have these things slip out, but what's so beautiful is that we catch it and we course correct, just like a plane course corrects its way to its destination. We don't abandon it. We're like, oh my gosh, okay, course correct. I'm going to feel free now.
And it gave me an opportunity as well to reframe and fall back into gratitude. And something I know I learned when working with you is, yeah, we work with certain coaches and invest a lot. And for myself, I never really had debt before. And then I invested in, lots of different things in my business and coaching. I was growing my business, all these things. And I started to see the debt pile up and it started to stress me out. And I started to go
Yeah.
into a really bad money mindset. However, I learned from you, working through that and also being grateful for my debt, being grateful for everything I have. Like, I feel lucky that I get to pay my bills. I get to wake up every day and do what I'm doing. And, I have the means to invest, whether that's debt or whatever. I have that means available to me. And so I always cycle back to that gratitude. And I did that with this contract when those words slipped out a few months ago. And I thought, no. And then I'm like, I wrote out all how grateful I was for what this contract enabled me to do, shifting me back into a better money mindset, helping me feel more abundant,
Yes.
investing in other coaching, like all these things that I've done, I would have never been able to do without having that. So falling back into that gratitude was really helpful.
Yeah, gratitude is the quickest way to have a mental adjustment. And then, we can measure what we will lose, but it's more challenging for us to measure what we will gain because in all honesty, it's beyond what you can measure. It's beyond what you're currently able to get your head around. And the thing with debt is just understanding it's just a decision to pay things off in a different way and pay things off later. And one of the things that I also realized was that people that we would look at as millionaires or billionaires leverage other people's money often. And it's a decision. It's a decision that you make, and it doesn't make you irresponsible or in any way anything negative. It is simply a decision that you made. So I think one of the things when it comes to money is the fastest we can get to neutral with money, the better.
100%. That's something I think I heard an amazing thing that money's like oxygen. It's always there and it's just flowing and we never go, I don't fortunately, anyone that, is not on a respirator, but anyone that's breathing healthily, we never question the oxygen. And that's how I see money. I'm like, it's always there. But again, this takes time, like lots of time.
Yes.
So, okay. I would love to leave our listeners. So we spoke about so many amazing things today about building this life and business that you love, about the importance of self-image, working through some of the judgments that you hold against yourself so that you can create space to be able to receive, the importance of receiving. What would you recommend that a listener can do today? So they're looking at their life, they're sitting here listening or walking or driving, and they're thinking, this is very interesting. And I'm not loving my life and or business a whole lot right now. What do you think is one thing that they could do today to start moving themselves, course correcting in the right direction?
I think that they should get a piece of paper and a pen, and at the top of the piece of paper, write 50 things that money can buy. We call this the 50 want list. And they should make a list of 50 things, 50, that they want that money can buy. And the purpose of this is that any judgments you have around money will come up really quickly. You'll also just connect with like, how does this feel for you to do? But also, you're going to notice what it is that you do desire, and it can just start to unlock that. So it may have nothing to do with your business. It may have nothing to do with certain things, but it's just a way to unlock your imagination. And then after you've done the list, the next part is to look at that list and circle things that you can start to do now, a version of. So this comes back to that when then mentality. So many times we think, well, I can't do this until I have this. But let's say, for example, on your list was, I would really love to have a cleaning person or a team come in once a week. Maybe once a week is not available to you, and you've been unconsciously not hiring somebody because you don't feel you can until you can do it once a week. Hire them to come once a quarter. Hire them once a month. So what could you do a version of? Maybe there are things even physically that you want to have, like a manicure, a pedicure, but you're like, oh my gosh, it's too much to do regularly. Do it once. And you'll actually start to see that you're going to circle a lot of things. You can get started on things, and this way, you can start moving and creating momentum around those things and trying different things and seeing what you like. So I think that's a great place to start.
I love that you said that. I've done this activity many times and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it this
Yes.
week again. And I can tell you that doing that activity spearheaded for me to go to a spa monthly. It's something that I said I would do, and I joined one. So I have a monthly kind of membership. So I always have to go, which I love. And having fresh cut flowers, like there's things that we write on this list. Oh my God, I love like literally fresh cut flowers like on my desk right now. But it's all these, when I wrote it out, I realized I'm like, okay, some of the things like I could go do this right now. Like, why am
Yes.
I waiting? And it put me in a really good energy. And I know that one of those things recently that I did a couple months ago was I remember having on my list, like, I want a power suit. I want a power suit. And I've been thinking about it and dreaming about it and ideating on it and manifesting it. And then one day I was like, this is it. I'm going. Went to the mall, tried on all these things, felt like a dream, and bought my suit. And it's like, we don't even realize how simple some of these pleasures can be. And they make that elevated my self-image. That made me feel so good. Walking into a store, telling them, I'm going to buy a suit today. Like, let's go. And then, shop for me. Like,
Well,
but
even Jane, like your pictures, now this might be a little bit not recent, but from California, I think
it was in February, very recent. Yeah,
it
it
was
was
very recent in
yeah,
February.
yeah,
I mean,
I
come on,
know. I
right? Like
know.
so great. And could you have imagined like a year ago or so that that is something you would be doing and how you
No.
showed up in those pictures, like gorgeous. And that
Yeah.
all comes from like it does come from fresh cut flowers. Like it's just allowing yourself to have the things that you enjoy and then it grows.
And honestly, it's and allowing all this to be easy, just like
Yeah.
you say, it should be easy, joyful, fun, and thank you. This, Hina, has been so good. I am going to be flying on a kite all day. I'm so excited. Thank you for being here and sharing all your incredible insight. And I'm just incredibly grateful that I got to work with you.
Thank you, Jane.